Immigration taking centre stage at the Republican National Convention. It resumes this Tuesday with speakers spotlighting a key issue for President Donald Trump. That's former President Trump, of course. We refer to him as president because he once was president, but he is still, in fact, the former president and the Republican candidate to dispute the election coming up in November. So that issue of immigration and his stance on that endeared him very much to the GOP, or Grand Old Party base, when he began his first campaign back in 2015. Some things don't change. Trump and JD Vance, then, his choice for running mate, expected to appear at the convention each night, according to two sources familiar with the planning. And you would expect that, wouldn't you? They've got to kind of really big up their partnership or budding bromance, which, of course, is central to the whole drama which will play out on November the 5th. Let's bring in Robert Parsons, our chief foreign editor, for more analysis of this one. So Trump and JD Vance, Rob, a match made in hard right Republican heaven?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, look, on politics, on most of the key issues, they're pretty much in line with each other. It helps, I think, for Donald Trump that JD Vance is young. He's 39. That changes the demographic, certainly for the Republican Party. You can't make the accusation anymore that it's aging, and in that respect, not greatly different from the Democrats. And on issues like foreign policy, they're completely in step. Perhaps even Vance is to the right of Donald Trump. He's certainly very strong on not supporting Ukraine, or has been up until now. Who knows what his position will be going forward? And I say that because, JD Vance is a man who has sort of blown with the wind when it comes to policy. If you go back to 2016, for instance, when he wrote his memoir, Hillbilly Elegy, enormously successful, but subsequently went on to make several critical remarks about Donald Trump, describing himself as a never Trump man, calling Trump America's Hitler, or a total fraud. And that pretty much remained his position up until 2022. But in 2022, he wanted to stand, become a member of the Senate, and he needed Donald Trump's endorsement. And his tune on Donald Trump has changed categorically ever since. So, this is a man who many have pointed out tends to change with the wind. But for the moment, at least, I think one can say you're right. They do seem to be together. He does seem to bring positives to the Trump table. In particular, if you look at that memoir, which highlights his working class background, the fact that he's come from the Middle West. He had a difficult upbringing. He understands, the Rust Belt states like Ohio. He can identify, in other words, with working class people in states like Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Michigan, which the Republicans lost in the last election, but where they need to do well this time if they're to carry the election. So that's why he's been brought on board. Trump feels that he can deliver. He's throwing red meat, if you like, to the MAGA faithful.
Nicely put, Rob. Thank you very much indeed. Stay with us. We're bringing Larry Sabato, who's founder and director of the University of Virginia Center for Politics. Larry, always a pleasure to have you here on France 24. We appreciate your time and also your opinions, which you express so freely with us. Robert Parsons is staying with us, our chief foreign editor as well. Larry, help me. This is a man, Vance, who called Donald Trump America's Hitler. How does he suddenly go from that to working with him? I don't understand. Explain how. Give us your sense of that.
Well, the New Yorker has a great new cartoon, and they suggest that the reason Trump didn't take offense at American Hitler is that he regards it as a compliment.
Seriously?
Well, it's a cartoon.
Okay.
But in any look, JD Vance was strongly pushed by Trump's two adult sons, Don Jr. and Eric. They very much favor him. Yes, he is a convert. He was a never Trumper who said all kinds of terrible things about Donald Trump for the first few years after Trump emerged on the national stage. But of course, now he is one of Trump's greatest advocates. He's also 39 and Trump is 78. And Trump is thinking about the future. Whenever he chooses to give up the presidency, technically under the Constitution, it would be scheduled for 2029, but with Trump, you never know. But he has a successor who's younger and who can carry forth the so-called MAGA policies, Make America Great Again policies. So they seem to get along reasonably well. I don't think that Vance adds very much to the ticket other than the generational contrast. He's from Ohio. Trump has won Ohio twice in a massive landslide. The people in the other Midwestern states that Trump needs to do well in, Wisconsin and Michigan, Pennsylvania, Minnesota, they don't even know who JD Vance is. He's the senator from Ohio, and he's been in for a total of 1.5 years. 1.5 years. That's his total experience in politics.
What about the optic, Larry, of having two white guys on the ticket? Is that something that is just basically too narrow, or is that actually speaking to a certain base that Trump has?
Well, there's no question that the Republican Party likes white males. They nominate them with great frequency. And of course, who is J.D. Vance replacing? Mike Pence, another white male. So it's more of the same, and that is the base of the Republican Party. They do overwhelmingly well with that particular demographic category, and they will again. They also do well with white women. Minorities less so, although Trump has made inroads with blacks and Hispanics and even young people this time around. So some of that's due to the economy, although it really isn't very bad here, but it's what people think is true rather than what is true.
Indeed, perception plays a massive part, doesn't it? I was once a student of politics, Larry, and I was told that it was persuading the floating voter that was key to winning an election. Is that now not true? Is it more now about motivating your base? And that's where we come back to Trump and Vance, that ticket.
That is exactly correct, because whereas in the 1970s, for example, about half the voters split their tickets between the two major parties, they would simultaneously vote for some from both parties. Now, about 90% vote for the same party from the top of the ballot to the bottom. So there just aren't many floating voters, and the center does not hold anymore. It's the left versus the right. It's not all that different from what we've seen in Europe recently.
How are things? I'm just wondering, obviously, we've had the assassination attempt. It's been a remarkable few days, hasn't it? I'm wondering how things are there right now. I imagine things aren't calming in any particular way.
This has helped Trump. I'm sure he would rather have done without it, but it has helped him because with his base, again, the evangelical Christians vote over 80% for Trump, white evangelical Christians. And they are convinced this was the hand of God that diverted the bullet and lifted Trump up. And you're hearing it. It's almost a religious service in Milwaukee at the Republican National Convention. So it's helped him. It's probably made criticism of Trump less welcome among Democrats and others, at least for the time being. We'll see how long that lasts. But, it's assisted him because he's always had such a hard, tough, nasty image. And now he's telling people that he's a changed man because he's been shot at with no effect, to paraphrase Winston Churchill.
Larry Sabato, pleasure speaking to you, sir. Thank you very much indeed. Founder director of University of Virginia's Politics Centre. Great to speak with you. Great to speak with Robert Parsons, as always, sir. And we're watching for all developments, of course, politically speaking, and otherwise in the United States.